The Art of Intrusion. By Kevin D. Mitnick and William L. Simon. The real stories behind the exploits of hackers, intruders and deceivers. Chapter number 1, Hacking the Casinos for $1 million. In the wake of 1990s, Alex Mayfield, along with his 3 friends, licked the casinos clean by taking in about $1 million, beating the systems there. Alex and his friends Mike, Marco, and Larry conducted a thorough research and figured that all past efforts with this aim to have an insider at the casino. Their plan relied on either predicting the sequence, or finding a backdoor to the software code of the machine to be altered. After getting access to the code from the patent office and buying the same slot machine used in most casinos in Vegas, their 4-member team of competent programmers, cryptographers, and organizers was all set. With self-made disassembler, they first translated the binary code of the chip, then reverse engineered for the logic behind the machine's code, the shuffling of the cards, and how the cards were picked. It took them a couple of weeks. But once they understood that the cards were picked through a random number generator, RNG, operating on a particular algorithm called linear feedback shift register, they looked for ways of cracking it. To their advantage was the fact that the RNG operated on a simple 32-bit system. They found out that the numbers being selected were not so random after all. To watertight their process, they operated on a home system with a chip much faster than those of the machines installed at the casinos. This provided them the leverage of time. Furthermore, for each team member who would go in, they bought a Casio wristwatch that would time up the whole thing, making everything precise. By reverse engineering, they devised a system where all the idiosyncrasies of the machine would be fed to a program. The program in turn would churn out the information on the exact instant, at which, if the machine is hit with a play button, it would display the royal flush, something that a slot player plays for. It was now time to test their hacking concoction in the real arena. They took in a camera, placed neatly in a shoulder bag and pointed right at the screen of the poker machine. As it was risky, the team used other means too. One was used by Mike where he would read the cards off the screen at 2 different times. The goal was to relay back to Larry who, after synchronizing his casino timer and calling the machine timing and card sequences, would enter the data into the program at the home computer and would inform the members in the field about cycle timing of the machine. The countdowns on the Casio wristwatches were set accordingly and the play button was pressed precisely when the watch would beep them about it. In his first win, Alex won $35,000. Their success rate was between 30 to 40%, and the rest wouldn't work out because of the timing not being precise enough. Due to the fear of tax authorities or someone figuring out the familiar faces consistently winning big bucks, the team, however, soon vowed to change their strategy. The vision of the guys for the improved hacking system was based the following 2 points. The payouts must be smaller so that they don't attract attention. The process should be less annoying than calling back and forth. They also selected a new target, an American-made machine which was a bit more complex than the Japanese one they had been previously targeting, as it contained 2 RNGs instead of 1. This one too, however, had some flaws in it. While this was being cracked, the team also built a wearable computer that could fit right into the pocket of your pants, whereas its control button could be fitted into the shoe of the player. Through a much sophisticated system, they would now feed the computer the machine data, and the computer in turn would tell what 5 additional cards were in waiting for each hand dealt. Although this was a much improved system, all good and bad things come to an end. The debacle of the entire operation came in the form of Marco getting overconfident and placing the control button in his coat pocket instead of shoes. This suspicious activity of a hand continuously playing with the coat pocket caught the attention of the security staff, and he was soon thrown out after an interrogation. Marco, although a little insensible in that regard, was a loyal team member and said he was acting independently. Afterwards, the team collectively decided to bid farewell to their million-dollar hacking run. The lesson for the developers out of this incident is to make the access to the firmware difficult. There are several ways to do that, including employing sourcing chips that are foolproof against attacks, usage of onboard chip packaging where the chip is part of the circuit board and non-removable, using epoxy along with aluminium powder to seal the chip on the board. This way, an attacker will only end up destroying the chip even if they heat the epoxy, using ball grid array, BGA, design, where the connectors are underneath the chip instead of the sides. Furthermore, always use more than one methods to protect the chip, and also employ the services of security consultants to educate yourself on what methods of hacking that are currently in use. Chapter number 2, When Terrorists Came Calling. Before 9/11 had happened, and before FBI had the international terrorism, or any kind of terrorism for that matter, on its radar, there were a couple of young American hackers potentially being used by terrorists for the preparation of the havoc they wreaked on the world in the following decade. For instance, Comrade and his friend NE0H, some 3,000 miles apart, were, unbeknownst to them, right at the center of this game. Through IRC, Internet Relay Chat, they were contacted by a character named Rahul B, who later also used Drama3456 as his handle. This character was eventually identified as Khalid Ibrahim, a rumored bin Ladenite. Khalid had highly sensitive hacking assignments that, although started from getting into the website of a Chinese university and extracting data out of it, went as high as penetrating into the systems of Boeing and Lockheed Martin as well, and even the White House. What he offered in return motivated the boys. For NE0H, it was the promise of good money that never arrived, and for Comrade, it was the thrill of getting inside the high-profile government websites. With every assignment, Khalid became increasingly serious in his demands. His assignments included getting internal access to India's Babu Atomic Center, hands-on Defense Information System Network Equipment Manager, DEM, and schematics of particular Boeing aircrafts. The boys found out about it later, but shortly when on Christmas Day 1999, they heard the news of an Indian airline flight IC-814 having been hijacked on its route to New Delhi from Kathmandu. The flight had 178 passengers and 11 crew members aboard, who later found themselves in Afghanistan in the captivity of Taliban. The incident, which resulted in the release of 3 militants jailed in India, one of them later proving to be an aide in the 9/11 attacks, also saw a passenger casualty at the hands of the hijackers. The worst came just about 2 years later when certain US airliners were rammed into the World Trade Center. Chapter number 3, The Texas Prison Hack. William and Danny were once convicted of murder. They met each other for the first time in Texas prison. When William arrived at the Wynn unit, Danny was already there. He was serving a 20-year sentence. Later he was assigned to perform clerical work in the transportation office. His curiosity and interest led him to develop a program to track the prison's shipments to other prisons all over the state. He made a trustee status, due to which he was assigned another job outside the perimeter of the prison. This was the turning point that allowed him access to computers. He then became in charge of hardware that provided him the opportunity to build computers. He took complete advantage of it and eventually became highly skilled in fixing computers. On the other hand, William was assigned a job in a kitchen that consisted of a computer. Although it was an age-old machine, it was decent enough for him to learn and practice some computer skills. He was able to store the kitchen data in an assembled format that required only a little amount of time. It was during those days that William came to know about Danny and his similar interests. William, by intentionally becoming friend of the guard, made it possible to bring in 3 computers with the help of his parents. The systems were placed in a small storage room connected to the commissary. Danny would at times pay a visit and use one of the computers. Looking at William's skills, he was assigned another task by the captain in his office. This was another golden opportunity for him. He connected his 3 computers to the captain's office, which contained music, videos, and games through an Ethernet connection. Danny was shifted to working in the agriculture office, a place filled with computers and telephones connected to the outside world. He managed to create his own outside connection along with setting a separate secret computer server. He also learned to control the machine of another person through his own machine. He proposed a way to William that allowed both of them to use their computers and internet whenever they wanted, without the risk of getting caught. An account along with an internet service provider was an essential part in the process. The problem resolved when William asked his parents to pay for their internet access. This led to a 24/7 internet connection in the agriculture office. William and David's story tells us the significance of realizing how securing perimeters is not the only solution to attain reliable solutions. An insider can also play a primary role in leaking the sensitive information, since they have substantial knowledge about the way things work within the respective system. Chapter number 4: Cops and Robbers. Matt and Costa did something extraordinary with the Boeing aircraft that resulted in a serious lesson for other hackers. Costa was always good in programming, and his intellect allowed him to develop interest in learning it at the age of 11. Matt was among the top 10 students in his school, took admission in the University of Washington and started studying legacy computing, mainframe computing. He also taught himself Unix during that time. Once, both of them decided to set their computers war dialing to see if they could connect to any computer system to break into. Eventually the computer dialed into a computer that showed a banner, U.S. District Courthouse. It is federal property. They managed to find its password and got access to the password file, which allowed them to get their hands on the sign-on names and passwords of the judges. Moreover, they were also able to break into other numerous computers such as hotels' computer systems that gave them access to information regarding the guests and their financial information. One famous company that caught their attention was Boeing. They were able to get access to their login names and passwords. Unfortunately, for Matt and Costa, the moment they broke into the system was the time when the Boeing aircraft was hosting a really big seminar on computer security. Later, Matt chose the career of a Java application developer at a large company in San Jose, and Costa started his own company. It is true that hacking is unethical, but it also lets us see the system from a new perspective. There are many people who were first hackers and then decided to become security professionals. Apart from just using strong passwords, it is high time for hardware and software manufacturers to take matters of security seriously. Chapter number 5: The Robin Hood Hacker. Hacking is a creative skill that requires strong sense of wit that can be learned by anyone willing to learn it. Mostly hackers hide their identities and make all kinds of shocking and surprising attempts. However, there are very few hackers like Adrian Lamo, who hack without hiding themselves and think of benefiting the victim through their knowledge and skills. Such people are regarded as the Robin Hood of hacking. Their motive lies in pointing out the weaknesses in the system of the organizations before they get stuck in some grave danger by any other hacker. Adrian Lamo, with his incredible skills, helped quite a lot of big names such as Microsoft, MCI WorldCom, Excite@Home, Yahoo, etc. Since his early days, Adrian was never like the usual kids. He always had immense interest in computers and viewed them as a window to his inner self. Adrian even managed to find the secrets of WorldComs via attacking the proxy servers. He notified the Washington Post about the security breach of Microsoft to a reporter on the condition to not publish the news until the problem got resolved. Once, he also decided to break into the Times computer network. Times had become quite annoyed towards security breach issues since they had to face a similar incident leading to public humiliation a few years before. That was done by a group known as HFG, Hacking for Girlies. Adrian took the challenge and succeeded in accessing the information of all the databases. He even got access to extremely sensitive information that consisted of names held by the United States on terrorism charges. It also gave him the control of manipulating the information, if he desired. It is important to realize that e-commerce sites, or even in this case Times, who run on weak or outdated software versions, give way to hackers to order something by charging the bill to someone else. He emphasized the fact how systems administrators fail to understand the mindset of the attacker. Adrian surfed the New York Times site for 3 months before notifying them. Even in this case, he practiced the Robin Hood behavior by notifying the company and not letting the news to be published until the issue was resolved. As expected, Times did not in any way appreciate his efforts. The previous embarrassment had left a great scar on their company's reputation. They were not ready to face another such situation. They showed no cooperation at all and involved the FBI. After much trouble, Adrian decided to give himself up. Chapter number 6, The Wisdom and Folly of Penetration Testing. Penetration testing, also known as pen testing or ethical hacking, is the act that lets the professional hackers identify the gaps and flaws in a company's security system. The aim of conducting the practice is to fill in those vulnerabilities which may leave the sensitive data of the company insecure. Government and business agencies ensure getting it done on a regular basis to avoid the potential gaps which may otherwise make the security of the organization more prone to intrusion. However, calling for such tests can be dangerous for the companies as, by doing so, they may pave the way for the hackers or testing professionals themselves. It is because, soon after the test is conducted, the hackers can use zero-day exploit to break in through the identified zero-day vulnerability. For instance, Dustin Dykes, a security consultant, was asked by a pharmaceutical company to pen test their network system. Once the terms were agreed upon, he was able to extract the passwords of the system soon after starting the test, allowing him access throughout the network. Furthermore, he got access to database from where he could view all the confidential information. While the organization was confident about its security system, the testing team was busy getting more and more of the vulnerabilities. By the end of the test, Dustin's team succeeded in scanning and completing information concerning the system while the company's in-house IT experts were unable to trace them. Therefore, penetration testing could prove to be a folly for the organization's security. Chapter number 7, Of course your bank is secure, right? We generally rest assured about our bank accounts while keeping our money there. The security systems of most banks, however, are not unbreakable. However, for example, there was a guy in Estonia who was not even a hacker, but managed to break into a local bank without much effort. What made the banking security so vulnerable was that more than 90% account holders were using insecure internet banking for money transfer. While surfing casually online, the hacker, Juhan, landed on the bank's web page. Exploring further, he found that he could crack the passwords of the different accounts there. It did not take him more than 15 minutes to crack not only customers' passwords, but also that of bank administration. Chapter number 8, Your intellectual property isn't safe. Intellectual property tends to be the most valuable asset of a company. Anything accepted can either be replaced or compromised on depending on the need of time and conditions. However, an attack on the intellectual property in one or the other way can prove to be unaffordable for the organization. Eric, a security consultant aging just over 30, took some 8 months before he could get the source code of an organization through intruding into the computer system of its CEO. To get there, he first identified the IP address through which that computer was connected. He further cracked the passwords by understanding their patterns, which were followed in most of them. It was not easy because the passwords were in a foreign language and he had to take the help of a friend as well as dictionaries. However, Even after getting into the computer, it was hard for him to get the source code of the target product. It had been a year by now. He kept on working and finally got to enter the very product online as a host. In spite of getting there, he was unable to score the essential codes due to the tight security. However, his regular access to it almost had him caught, and therefore he decided not to get back there for a month. He did not give up due to the setback, and made another attempt which lasted for some weeks before he could not only get in but also find and crack the zip folder which contained the source code of the product he had been after for so long. Hackers, having their specific motives, are hard to stop. They are likely to be determined for achieving their goals no matter how long it may take them. Chapter number 9, On the Continent. In the business industry, the most irritating thing of all is that people from outside cannot be taught about the internal security, even if you wanted to. The IT consultants that you may hire to beef up your cybersecurity do not mind being told about things which need their attention. There are a few lessons worth your attention to prevent cyber attacks: temporary workarounds, schedule regular checks and tests on configurations and gateways with the help of physical and logical inspection along with the relevant tools. High ports usage. Connectivity to high ports does not guarantee a 100% security, and believing this leaves your security system vulnerable. For keeping the systems secure, you need to make sure that the points of all the access in the system or the devices are free of networks which cannot be trusted. Passwords. These also need a schedule change before the systems or the devices go under the production process. Such a state is rather easy for the hackers to exploit. Secured personnel laptops. The system and laptop of the employees which they use to access the company's internal system from their homes should be secured to connect. Authentication. Only stronger authentications can prevent the hackers from breaching the security system of your company. For this, multiple authentication sources should be used to remote accesses of VPNs and any other sensitive systems. Filtered services. This means that IT department must control connections with the services which are not trustworthy, like the internet, etc. Hardening. The systems should be hardened every now and then on the computers connected with internal system, even if the chances of being attacked are low. Simply relying on firewall is not enough to keep the security away from a breach. Chapter number 10, Social Engineers: How They Work and How to Stop Them. Social engineering is more dangerous than any virtual attack on any organization's security. Such engineers use everyday persuasion techniques for manipulation and deception of people to fulfill their motives of breaching one's security. To do so, they opt for one or the multiple tactics from the following trappings of role. Almost in every encounter, a social engineer would use trappings of role. They would use information like industry jargon or technical knowledge and make you assume things about them which are not true. The people who are targets foolishly fill in the false blanks, while the trappers get what they are looking for. Credibility. Building credibility is the foundation for being a social engineer. There are 3 methods to build one's credibility: to argue against one's belief, warning someone about an event, and helping the target to solve their problem. Altercasting. Altercasting means to force the targeted audience into a role. The social engineer manipulates the targeted person into a role which they might feel comfortable in playing by conversing with them. Compliance. Momentum. Building momentum. Compliance means that a social engineer asks a series of harmless questions. They keep adding one more thing till they end up asking about the sensitive information. The desire to help. The desire to help others is an innate feeling. When people help others, they feel good with a sense of empowerment. Social engineers take advantage of this desire and attack the people who are most vulnerable in controlling their desire to help others. Attribution. Attributions are the qualities of one's behavior in a certain way. A social engineer moves with specific attributes around their target. Liking. We are most likely to help people we like the most. The social engineers study their target for this purpose. They find people's interests and then make their requests. They also use flattery to get whatever information they want. Fear. Social engineers are really good at using fear as their weapon against their target. They warn their targets as if something bad is about to happen, and they must do something to prevent it. Reactance. Psychological reactance is the negative experiences one feels when they get the sense of losing something, especially their freedom. The social engineer, oftentimes, says something which evokes negative emotions into their targets to extract the information by helping them out. Chapter number 11, Short Takes. The path to make your systems secure begins with you. How often do you blame the hackers for breaching into your sites, causing you trouble by taking over, and making a fool out of you and your business or products? Almost every time. How often do you realize, however, that you first need to look at the loopholes you let loose for them to find to attack your security? Hardly ever. If you look at all the stories related to the former hackers, you will find that some of them were not even hackers. It is the organizations that have left their systems vulnerable to get hacked by rookies. There is a treasure of sources online that can help people gain access to any system which has open portals or are poorly secured. Apart from that, improving passwords from your end also play a significant role in securing your systems. These passwords should be changed after every month or two. What we learned. What was the core message that we got from this book? The lesson for the developers is to make the access to the firmware difficult. A company operating on a publicly accessible computer must anticipate zero-day attack all the time. An insider can also play a primary role in leaking the sensitive information. Mostly hackers hide their identities and make all kinds of shocking and surprising attempts. Penetration testing lets the professional hackers identify the gaps and flaws in a company's security system. Organizations are suggested to have a regular check of the gaps to fill in for ensuring the security of their systems. Banks, being responsible organizations, must have a resilient approach towards any potential intrusion. Hacking is unethical, but it also lets us see the system from a new perspective. Organizations need to educate and train employees about the threat and how to protect themselves from being duped into assisting the intruders. The human element has been proven to be information security's weakest link for ages.